Hi everyone, it's Roger and James here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this bonus episode, we're going to be doing a retro review of Oliver and Company, which is available now on Disney Plus. But before we go any further, just a big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. So a quick shout out for September to Lauren, Jacob, Sarah, The Juice, What's on Netflix, Andrew, and also to Julie. One over at YouTube, a big hello and thank you to Mike, Eddie, Jay, Joshua, Drew, Sarah, and also Adam. So again, huge support, and members of either YouTube members or Patrons do get access to episodes like this a week earlier than everybody else as a nice little bonus. So moving on from there, let's jump into Oliver and Co. And because this was one I think you popped up and a lot of people joined in on the Patreon and said that they wanted to see us talk about it. So let's start off with you. What did you think of it, or is your thoughts on Oliver and Co?
Well, I really enjoy it. I think that's obvious from previous comments. It's a nostalgic movie for me, and I have a certain bias towards it. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the bias over my shoulder here, and it's probably backwards, but you can figure it out. I do like the Oliver story, Oliver twist. It's just a solid adaptation, and I like the music with it. Yeah.
I can't believe I missed that part of it.
Okay, so he's not sitting there going, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" But yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't think I've watched Oliver Twist. I'll be honest, I don't think I've actually ever watched that movie, but I'm there going, oh, right, that makes more sense.
The characters are even named after him. You've got Fagin and Sykes and all these guys in it.
Yeah, but if I've not watched the original, I didn't really know that.
It's fair. I'm sure that a lot of people actually haven't. As far as I know, there hasn't been a recent adaptation of Oliver Twist, or at least a major one, in quite some time. If you talk about the movie, most people still go back to like the black and white one from way back when. So this might actually be the most recent version of Oliver Twist that most people would be aware of. Even if they don't know that it is in fact Oliver Twist.
I'm just like, oh, right. I feel like I missed a major plot point.
I mean, a little yay, a little nay. It's also obviously modernized. It takes place in at the time modern New York, and so you don't have the trappings of England and such from the time period. And some of the characters are very different from what they were, because part of the transition is they become animals.
Like,
and
Artful Dodger and Oliver, yeah. Why did I
Artful Dodger.
I'm having a real bold moment. There we go.
To be fair, they don't call him Artful Dodger. His name is just Dodger in the movie. But yeah, it's Oliver Twist. Hey, I think we're done here. We can't top that. All right, no. So that's my opinion. I like it. I really like the music. There are a couple of songs that even today are still in most of my playlists. The opening credit song, which is one of Billy Joel's, and then the one where the girl is playing the piano after she first meets Oliver and You and Me Together and all that stuff. So I really like this movie. What are your thoughts on it, especially now that it's from?
I'll be honest, this was a movie I don't know if I'd seen. I don't know if I've actually seen this movie before. Because I had it on, and my wife comes and goes, "What are you watching?" I said, "Oliver and Company." She's like, "Have we ever watched that?" So it's like, it's like 7:30 in the morning, and we're going to work, and we're both watching Oliver and Company. And it was like, going, okay. That's like, and we go, when did this come out? I was like, oh, this is back in the 80s. Like, we both missed it. I don't know. It's like, this was one of those Disney movies that, like, I must have just missed. I don't remember it being on TV very much. It's one of those movies I don't think we've seen. You don't see very much merchandise. There's not a lot of talk about it. I remember getting the Dodger Vinylmation, was like one of the first Vinylmation figures I remember getting in the blind box and going, who's that? So this was a movie that, I'll be honest, I didn't really know, and I kind of watched it and I was like going, okay, it's kind of good. It was a bit as far as like Billy Idol. Billy Joe. Did he do the White Wedding one? Or am I getting him mixed up with somebody else?
No, that was Billy Idol. And actually, I can't say
So
that.
I'm also confused because Billy Ocean was on the news the other day, and I go, yeah. So this is a movie where I went in like as blind as I possibly could without my glasses on, and just like, yeah, all of that just completely went over my head. It was like I watched it and I thought the story was good. I enjoyed it. I thought, there's obviously the cat there. It's pouring with rain and it's cute and no one's picking it up. And I like that whole aspect of them, like stealing food and being taken in. And I thought that was good. Is that thing that I just remember where this? See, I was there. Was it they? I was thinking more like the Santa Claus when the coat takes the dog, and there was just like that weird thing of us going, okay, I see what you're doing, and then they had the whole thing with this bad villain. I mean, they killed the way they killed him in the end. It was like, oh, that's pretty brutal. They didn't hold back when they had him just smash into a train. That whole kind of chase scene was just like, okay, it's like, see where we go. The music, to be honest, Billy Idol,
Billy
I
Joel.
wouldn't. Billy Joe. I don't even know who. I don't know a single song of his. So I've got like no
You
connection with him
probably
at all.
you probably do. You just don't know they're his. That's me for most music. But Billy Joel is one of the artists that I grew up with. I know most of his
I see
songs.
who he is now. I'm just
Yeah,
googling and see who he is. Yeah. I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was. Maybe he wasn't that big over here in the UK when I was growing up. Maybe that was.
he is a very American centric singer.
Yeah.
He was from that kind of time period of like blue collar singer, singing about life in America. I can see why that wouldn't necessarily make it across. He was big in Russia, apparently, though. It's a kind of an odd jump. But yeah, in
Yeah.
any event, if you're not familiar with the singer, it actually doesn't matter too much because this is still from that era of Disney where there were names involved. Billy Joel being a name. You also have Dom DeLuise in playing Fagin. You have Cheech Marin in there. I think Bette Midler had a role in it as well. I think she was the poodle. Um, but
Uptown Girl. I know that one. And
yeah,
just the way you are.
like I
Yeah.
said, you probably know the songs. You just don't know they're
Yeah.
his. But
Yeah.
this was before Disney really started advertising actors. I know that really changed with Aladdin. When
Yeah.
Robin Williams was all over the poster, against his wishes, no less. But before that, you look at even the stuff from the '80s, Black Cauldron. You don't even okay. So most people don't even know Black Cauldron, but
Yeah.
you don't know any of the actors in it. You don't know any of the actors in Robin Hood, the animated one. You don't know the actors in Sword in the Stone, and definitely don't know the actors of Cinderella and Snow White. Obviously, I know there are people listening to this who are very hardcore Disney fans who do know the actors. I'm just saying that Disney did not advertise, Snow White voiced by blank, Cinderella voiced by blank. It was Cinderella.
Mm.
And
It's funny.
this was arguably one of the last movies that was in that phase, even though it had name actors in it.
Mm. It's funny because you mentioned because I just was here looking to see like with Billy Joel and like he only ever had one number one Uptown Girl in the UK and he had a few hits in the but yeah maybe that's kind of thing. And again, this movie, I don't know, it was one of those. I don't remember it being a big thing here in the UK. And the trouble is, like at that time of my life, if my local video shop didn't have it available for 50p when you rented another video, or it wasn't shown on the BBC, you wouldn't have. That was it. That was your only access to these kind of movies. So those, if it wasn't on their rotation and they didn't have the rights or whatever it was, you just didn't see it. And there was so many of that era that you just didn't see because of that. That was our system. My little local corner video shop was my viewing, and if they didn't have it, I didn't know it existed.
And to be fair, that's not much different than it was here either. Oliver and Company, Black Cauldron, movies like that, they just weren't shown. They weren't on TV. I don't recall seeing them at the store that would become Blockbuster. I don't remember what the original name for my local store was, but they weren't available. And of course, this was also in the time when Disney didn't do annual releases of the movies. It wouldn't be okay. You go to the movie theater and you see Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast was the first one. You would go to the movie theater and you'd see The Rescuers or Black Cauldron. It wouldn't be out on VHS or Betamax, for at least a year, if not longer.
No,
The idea
yeah.
of
See, apparently, this is why I've just had a look here on our good source of Wikipedia. Despite the financial success at the box office, Oliver and Co. was not released on home video, despite being one of the most requested Disney films. After its release, it was only released in 1996, 8 years later. So yeah, that's why I didn't see it. 8 years old when it came out, I didn't go to cinema to see it. And therefore it wasn't available. So therefore that's a prime reason of how, there was a reason why I didn't see it, because it just wasn't available in my available to watch.
it wasn't available here, and it's from that let's call it like dark age of Disney movies. They exist. They have fan bases, like you said. People were requesting it, but they aren't well known. And it had the misfortune of coming right before Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, which was really that brand new period.
And it also apparently came out on the same day as The Land Before Time, which
Oops.
Yeah, which so technically, apparently, it didn't outdo it, but yeah, so it didn't kind of. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this now, going like, well, how did I miss? Like, okay, there was a legitimate reason why I hadn't seen it. It wasn't out. It was, like at that age, I don't remember. We weren't taking the cinemas. That it wasn't. It wasn't a bit. Something like, and you try to remember a movie from when you're 8 is a bit tricky. But then when it got re-released when we're in our late 20s, it's not, again, a movie you would jump in on. So there again, see, this is how so much has changed over the years of, again, when we were watching it and why my wife couldn't remember it, because it was, that kind of thing has a massive impact. Decades, a decision made, you think back in, 1989 about some executive about not releasing it due to financial issues at Disney can mess that movie up for decades of people not having any connection to it.
Yeah, and not even just not releasing the movie. It didn't have a presence at the parks. It did not have presence in merchandise. There may have been something when it was released in the park, but obviously both you and I are way too young to remember if there was any promotional stuff going on then.
Yeah.
And now there's nothing. You might get an occasional pin release. They might have they don't do the Vinylmations anymore.
No.
They don't really do them.
No.
So you might get that, or you might get a random Funko Pop when Funko is scraping the bottom of the Disney barrel, and it doesn't really deserve that. Now, I will grant you, it's not an exceptional movie. It's not a must see. You guys are missing out on a true Disney classic here. But it is a solid movie. You just have to know what you're going in on, because it's also a pretty dark Disney movie, especially towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's like a thing of like, I thought it was, it's good. I was sort of watched it and I'm like, okay, you kind of got the that kind of thing of where you don't see the villain from the feet up, that kind of thing that they did, and I don't know. It was like I watched it and I got to the end of it. I'm like, okay, cool, it's fine. I wasn't blown away with it. Right. But also, if you've never seen it before, like me, it's worth checking out. But also, and I think that's if your kid is watching Moana on repeat or Frozen on repeat, maybe start trying to make them watch some other stuff. Go down the list, pick some movies out, and start kind of giving them something else to watch rather than Mulan, because it's got somebody. The trending tab shows me that people are just watching the same movies on repeat. Get in there, watch this, because this is, again, it's like we do these retro reviews, and to be honest, I really enjoy this aspect of kind of going and finding either lost gems that I didn't know about, or movies, because this is especially, I mean, there's another one that we wanted to talk about soon about like the Great Mouse Detective. Remember that being advertised as a kid, but I don't know if I've actually ever seen it. Again, that whole era of Disney was such a weird place. Of the 80s and the 90s they weren't. You had the Renaissance, but before the Renaissance and after the Renaissance, things got a bit ropey. And, this 80s era just doesn't get remembered in the same way. And I can see why, because ultimately, these are not a touch on the stuff from the 60s and the 70s. They like lost the musical aspects. They didn't have the catchiness to it. The songs, because, but for me, I don't remember, I don't know a single song from it. It's not played at the parks, then, and that kind of Disney aspect of, it's like Mulan. We did we watched that. I know more of the Mulan songs and the characters from visiting the parks than I did watching the movie. I knew the music because of them using it, and that was that kind of synergy that they use. Whereas Oliver and Co, that one's in the pile of we don't touch that one.
Right, and as much as I do like the songs from it, they aren't traditional Disney songs. They typically are not telling the story. At least the one sung by Billy Joel himself. They are more his style, where he's kind of telling a narrative, but it's not directly the narrative of what you're watching. Now there is the one with the girl playing the piano, and she's like, we're gonna be best friends and you and me together and all that stuff. There is that, but it doesn't have that same cadence, that same kind of stuck in your headness that the stuff from Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid, or even the older stuff like When You Wish Upon a Star and all that.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? You think of like Tarzan, you think of Jungle Book, you have songs which you just go for it. And again, it's repetition. If you don't have these movies on, as a kid, that didn't go in there obviously because this is the issue. But now you can watch on this. It's definitely, again, one of those things of going. I think I had seen it, and I maybe had seen it before, but this was a perfect opportunity of watching something and going. I vaguely remember something about this. I remember the and then like watching, going, yeah, no, I really don't think I have seen this, and that was like quite a strange thing of going. I could have gone and swore I'd seen it, and I what, yeah, this is brand new on me, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of quite nice at the minute, especially with so little out of kind of watching an old movie, because suddenly an old movie becomes new if you've never seen it.
There is certainly that, and that's definitely true for young kids. Like you were mentioning before, they're watching Moana, Frozen 2, so on. There is a whole giant catalog of movies from Disney that they have not seen. And I'm not talking about Cinderella or Snow White. If they haven't seen those, you should probably show them those so that they at least get the history. But there's that whole period up from, say, Robin Hood, maybe, up to, but not including, The Little Mermaid. Probably have never seen any of them. Maybe don't start with The Black Cauldron. Just saying.
It's funny as well, because I think kids are so much more used to the CGI effect of movies now. And I don't know, it's the art style is, there was one thing that really did notice with Oliver and Co was the grainy look of the city, but also the advertising like Kodak and Coca-Cola and things.
We're not sponsored by Coca-Cola.
I wish it was.
No, but they're artifacts. They are things that maybe don't even make sense. I guess Kodak's making a bit of a resurgence these days, but yeah, that it does capture how New York, at least a stylized version of New York from that time period. And there are things in this movie that you might have to explain to your kids because they don't have modern equivalents anymore.
But also as well, not even that, but New York has changed so much since the 80s. In the 80s, it was a real rough, like, nobody went in. It had the boom of tourism and all the rest of it. And and because back in the 80s, it was a very different, it was a gritty, dark place. And, it was a scary place. It was setting it there was interesting. I thought as a whole, Oliver, he looked pretty cute and all the rest of it. The other dogs and stuff, I love the little Chihuahua and the whole side effect of his like love interest in the poodle, and then him just like running away at the end in his little sailor outfit. I love that with the little subtleties of all of that. But yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect.
It's actually funny that you mentioned before, the CGI aspects of modern movies. This was one of the first Disney movies that used CGI. It was used for the car at the end. Yeah. I don't know if it was the first, but it's definitely one of the first. And it's kind of amazing how far we've come. And I'm not even talking like Frozen, which are entirely CGI, or Toy Story, but just you can tell it's a different style, that it is animated in a different style, that the animation, the fluidity or not of the car is very different from everything around it. And you can just tell. And modern animation that uses CGI to supplement it, more often than not these days, you can't really tell unless they do the texturing bad or something like that.
No, but as a whole, I thought Oliver and Co. is definitely worth checking out. I enjoyed it. Probably a 3 out of 5. It wasn't. It's not one I put on my top tier, but I'm glad I watched it. Glad something new and I learned something today. I definitely learned something. I can't believe I missed that. I really can't believe I missed. I've never read Oliver Twist. Literally, all I know is, please, sir, can I have some more? That's an Artful Dodger because of my name. That's literally my entire knowledge of Oliver Twist. So now I can say, I know what Oliver Twist is all about. It's about a cat.
I think people might look at you a little weird on that one. Keeping in mind,
he gets destroyed by a train at the end.
The cat does not get destroyed by a train. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, no.
If you have not seen Oliver and Company, or Oliver Twist for that matter, this does not have your typical animal movie sad ending. There's not a whole bunch of like dead dogs at the end of it, thankfully. I did say it's dark. It's still lighter than the actual Oliver Twist, though. That is a really dark story at times. Yeah, I recommend watching it. It's a good alternative to the movies that they've had on repeat. Even if you don't have kids, it's a pretty solid Disney movie. It's not going to, it's probably not going to jump to the top of your favorite Disney movies of all times, but it should sit solidly in the middle. You should enjoy your time with it. The music is good. The animation is good. The story holds up. It's just, you can tell that there is a generational gap between it and Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and all that, even though they're literally only a handful of years apart.
I mean, yeah, literally a year. I mean, 80. This was 88, the year before Little Mermaid. Different. I mean, such a difference in how that movie has been treated with time. You know, now it's on a completely different. You know, I mean, I'm sure Disney are working on a live action version of it, but who knows?
Probably,
but yeah. Let us know what you thought of Oliver and Co. You know, let me know. And I know I'm going to get some stick for this one. I know this one's a bad one because but there we go. Like I said, this is where you come into it, where all you know is the name and the picture on the front, and you've not read anything. I'll be honest, I didn't do any research onto it at all. I just put it on, and I think that sometimes that can be for the best.
I'm going to remember this episode as like the only time in my life where I have more musical knowledge than the person I'm talking to. That is a very rare occasion for me.
Yeah, but I'm putting this down to international differences.
I'll give you that.
I think this is where it is. Yeah, that's my excuse. And I'm going to stick to that one really well. But on that note, again, I'm going to need it. On that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back with another episode soon. Remember, patrons and YouTube members get to contribute early and let us know some vote on which one of these movies we're going to do, and also get to see them a little bit earlier. And you can do that by hitting that little join button. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for hitting that subscribe button, and we shall see you guys soon. Later.